Hey everyone, Ben Eubanks here. Welcome back to HR Tech Talks. I am so excited to have you here as part of the conversation. As usual, whether you're here live and you're listening in, you're hanging out with us. By the way, if you are, let us know where you're listening in from. It's always exciting for me to see where everybody is. I'm representing down here in Huntsville, Alabama, and my guest today, normally stationed up in Portland, Oregon, is where she hails from, but she's today on location, remote in Texas. So same time zone. She appreciated that. Yeah. Excited to have you here. If you're watching the replay later on, chime in. People still can get those comments. They still know, they'll get the notifications. They'll still be able to see you as part of the conversation. So whether it's just saying hello, you've got a question as we go through and talk about learning today in the conversation, whatever the case, honestly, goodness, I'm just glad to have you here. That's an honor. So today we're going to talk about learning. As I said, we just finished our new study on learning and reskilling and talent mobility. And one of the things that popped out in there to me is we asked employers about their challenges in the last year, the tools they're using, the issues they saw around their learning. And one of the top challenges for employers was they wanted access to better content. They said, we really realized that we had a gap here. We couldn't scale content fast enough across our people. They didn't have the right resources they needed. And so I'm excited to have Jessica Layfield here with us from OpenSesame, because that's one of the things they do is they serve as that kind of content backbone for employers that need high quality resources to share with their people. So without any further ado, I'll bring Jessica into the conversation, and I'm so glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben. Hello to everybody watching live and on demand. So delighted to be speaking with you. Ben's right. I am, for the moment, tuning in from Texas, Houston, Texas, but I am a member of the OpenSesame marketing team. And I'm normally based in Portland, Oregon, where our corporate headquarters are. So if you're not familiar with OpenSesame, Ben did an awesome job kind of explaining what we do, but I'll go into a little bit more depth really quickly. So on the big kind of our vision and our goals, and really what we strive to do is we want to help develop the world's most productive and admired workforces. And develop is the key word there. So, and we do that by providing the world's most comprehensive catalog of e-learning courses and content from the world's top publishers. So we've got more than 20,000, I think we're at 22,000 plus courses in the OpenSesame e-learning catalog from publishers that you would recognize, particularly if you're a leader in the L&D world, some that you, even if you wouldn't, like Harvard Business Publishing and TED. So we're very excited to partner with really great name brands, as well as partner with our LMS and LXP partners, the platforms that deliver learning to those enterprise organizations that we're so happy to call our customers. So that's a little bit about us and where we fit into the learning ecosystem. And we're just delighted. We've been partnering with Lighthouse Research for a little while now, and glad to have this moment on your platform, Ben.
Awesome. Wonderful. I actually was trying to write that down because I didn't have that written down before. Develop the world's most productive, what was that
and
saying?
Admired workforces.
And admired. I love that. So I'm going to have to ask you a question. I know you and I had a couple of things we were hoping to talk about, but I'm going to ask you a question about that, if you don't mind, before we go any deeper.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen in research for as long as I've been in the HR and talent space, the biggest thing that employees want is a company that actually develops them, right? If I'm going to stick around long-term, that is the key thing that keeps someone there. And I talked to a group of leaders last week, heads of talent, CHROs, about what they're expecting for the coming year. And one of them used this phrase like the Great Resignation. They said, we're worried people are going to see companies as, if companies stay virtual, they're going to see them as like a commodity. And it's my belief, and I'd love to get your take on this, it's my belief that a company that uses learning as a lever to connect with people, to connect them to the work, to connect them with the mission, to connect them with the community, lots of different ways to use that learning as a lever there. But it's my take that a company that uses learning to do those things is going to stand out from the rest. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It's all about culture, right? You're talking about companies as commodities. Some people are even viewing culture as commodities, right? It's something where they're really looking at the culture of an organization as a benefit and a piece of why they want to work somewhere. And so creating a culture where, your employees feel valued, they feel like you really care about what what their career path is. Even organizations, that we partner with that say up front, that we are providing this to make you better people. And of course, a benefit of you being a better person, more well-rounded, more skilled. We talked to a customer not too long ago who said, we want people to just be more, developed in their daily life, whether that's them coaching their, kids' youth sports league, that, that they feel like they have skills to do that, because, courses, e-learning courses, people think they're stuffy. They're not. They can provide really valuable skills, communication skills can help, where it might be, why would a truck driver take a communication course? Well, of course, there's benefits for them in the workplace, across their team, but that also helps them communicate better in their life outside of work. And that's something where when employees know that you care about them as a full person and learning is part of that, then that's something where, it's going to be very meaningful. And that's where you're going to see that benefit of retention come in, because it's hard to leave a company that cares about you as an individual, because as much as I wish that were the case everywhere, it's simply not.
Goodness. It's funny you mentioned that on the there are some industries or types of professions where you think, oh, do they really need those? Like truck drivers, the example you gave. I, not an hour ago, was actually recording a session and talked about the same exact thing, but for the construction industry. And so, people don't think of construction industry and think soft skills, and yet the people that are in that space, they are going to need a combination of skills to be able to not just do their job today, but long-term, the viability piece, right? We see so much disruption, automation, all these different things are affecting even very traditional types of roles like that. And so it's not just enough to be able to swing your hammer anymore, but I got to be able to look at and use data to predict what's going to happen with our demand, right? Do some forecasting. Or I've got to figure out how to do this other thing that's relational and focused on how I interact with the people.
Yeah, and innovation can come from anywhere within your organization, which is something that, we really champion within OpenSesame's own organization, as well as, our clients believe that as well, that just because somebody's new or because they're not in a senior leadership position doesn't mean that they can't have the next great big idea that's going to make your organization, the leader in your industry. And so you want to give people the tools and the comfort level to come to you. So if they know that you're developing them as a person, like, we see you as whatever path you want to go, we're going to help you get there. And they're going to feel more comfortable coming to you with ideas. And they're maybe even going to be, if you allow them to and provide these opportunities for them to develop as communicators, as leaders, they might be more comfortable coming and expressing their idea to you because they know it's something that you're open to.
Goodness. So that kind of leads us towards one of the questions I want to ask you as part of this conversation, because it's about, let's pay attention to the individuals. Let's understand who they are. And let's not give everybody the same thing and say, okay, let's, hopefully that solves most of the needs that most people have, and the rest of you, good luck. But for a long time, training was, let's just peanut butter spread. Let's give everybody the same thing. And the problem is everybody doesn't need the same thing. And I think later on, we'll probably, let's hold on a little bit. We'll talk about the DEI, like that is a total conversation that wrapped around that. Everybody doesn't need the same thing. But for now, let's talk about the learner part of that. Why have we done that? And what's the answer? Right? Why have we always just said everybody gets the same thing in learning? And now we have the opportunity, I think, to change that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so why have we done that? Why have we made learning, so kind of stagnant, or, that everyone gets the same thing? Why? I mean, I'm sure people have asked themselves for years that. One reason, in my opinion, is that it's easy, right? From the administrative part, it's easy to say, we need to do something, especially when you have enterprise companies that are global, and they're like, we need to get training about a certain topic out to 10,000 people. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
That can be incredibly overwhelming if you're trying to individualize that learner experience. But you're not going to be able to build a course for every unique person and every unique learning style. That's just impossible. That's something where, particularly in today's organizations, L&D professionals are asked to do, or, even if there's not a dedicated L&D professional, if someone in HR, they're asked to do so much and solve so many organizational problems, or opportunities or challenges, however you want to frame it, and which is great. We want L&D and HR brought into those big ticket conversations that really can drive an organization forward. But part of that always remains delivering training, and it's hard to do that at scale for so many different types of learners. But we've seen the difference where if you do take the time to at least offer some personalization options and localization, where you really prioritize delivering training that is a fit for someone for the type of learning style that they have, as well as particularly when it comes to language and somebody's native language. I mean, the retention and the ability to apply that learning to their jobs just is so much more impactful.
It's funny because there's a concept I learned years and years ago, 100 years ago in college, that's actually explains why that is, right? And if anyone's, I'll take you back, right? Do the Wayback Machine really quick. There's a thing called transfer of training. And essentially it says the closer the training approximates real life, the more likely you'll remember it. In some of those cases, we always think like, okay, well, I've got to simulate what this manual task. But you mentioned the cultural aspects, right? If we just give them like, well, the way that we might see it here in the US or even in parts of the US could be radically different than how it's going to look in other countries, boots on the ground when that situation actually happens. And so thinking about it through those lenses and saying, well, actually not just the language pieces you talked about, but also there's all the culture aspects and everything else. Those can change how something is received and also the impact that it has. So I've never stopped to think about it that way, actually, but that's a really interesting point to make there.
Yeah. And that's something where, to bring it back to OpenSesame, because you knew I was going to have to do that, but where we really see ourselves adding value to L&D teams and to organizations is the fact that we're able to partner with so many publishers, where that we have courses, if you talk about a compliance course, well, let's not talk about compliance because that's a whole different thing, but maybe something like
leadership training,
anything, interacting in the workforce, communication, any of those topics, it's going to be different. No, I mean, even US to UK or even throughout Europe, anywhere there's English speaking countries, even though it's like, oh, it's the same, it's English, it's not. There's American English, there's British English, there's there's different facets of it, and being able to even have down to the spelling, down to the phrases used, can have a significantly better impact on the learner's ability to take and absorb that information and apply it. And that, of course, talking about global workforces, everything's more remote, more virtual. You can, seek out the best talent no matter where they're located. And, if that means, or if you have offices and, or locations in different countries, you don't want to just make somebody take a training that all it is like, subtitles, but it's an English course and it's not localized for them. So the ability to offer courses in, OpenSesame has about more than 18 different languages represented in our catalog. So that's something that's super impactful.
If you're a learner, in our one of our previous studies, and we actually found it to be somewhat true this time around, although it's a little better. We found in the last study we did, we found that about 1 in 5 learners said, I don't know if my company knows what my skills are. And I always said, like, how does that feel to be that person? That's the same thing you just said. Hey, we've got this great course over here. We're going to put some subtitles on it in your language and you can consume it now. How does that feel to that learner that says, I get the scraps of whatever content they're putting over here. They're getting the good stuff, right, in English or wherever the host country is. And I'm getting the scraps over here because they didn't take the time to do that. So I think putting those things in place, allowing them to get in their native language allows it, again, it's a better experience for the learner. But long-term, the whole point of learning, the whole point of training isn't just to make learners happy. It's to lead to better performance, right? It's to lead to better them being able to do the thing you're trying to teach them to do, whether it's a soft skill, leadership, communication, those things, or something else. It doesn't matter. It's what we're trying to get to. And so if we're giving them something that's just read this thing, research shows that's less impactful to someone than being able to feel like it mirrors their work and more closely approximates the kind of things they'll be doing after the fact. So I'm all over that with you and totally on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning with individualization, that personalization. When you deliver training to somebody in a language, and not to put down subtitles. Subtitles are a great,
They are.
often, and they're the next kind of, if there's not something, it's great to have. But even going that step of offering a course with subtitles in that language for somebody, I mean, that just shows that you care about them as an individual, and you recognize that that you're going to try and make it as personalized and tailored to them as possible, and so that they can have the best learning experience, so that they can grow at the same level as anyone else within your organization.
I'm going to ask you something that seems random, but I'm going to tie it back to what we said. If you're in your car on the passenger seat, what's that little thing you can pull the handle and open? It's about knee height. What do you call that thing?
Oh, the glove compartment, right?
You call it a glove compartment. Okay. We called it, my parents called it a glove box. And we have friends who live kind of Midwest. They call it a jockey box. I don't know where that came from, but that's what they call it. And so again, it just goes back to, you can be in the same country and have regional differences. And that's why localizing is so important in your training content, because someone might say something, you're like, I'm not sure what that is, or that doesn't translate for me either literally or figuratively. And you can't quite get to whatever you're trying to teach them in that content. So it's probably not going to be that silly of an example. Maybe it'll be something more impactful in the workplace. So there we go. One of the things I want to ask you about is, I know that OpenSesame uses machine learning as part of how it personalizes and tailors learning to people. And neither of us are computer scientists or engineers, but I was hoping you could talk a little about that, because I've been doing some of the writing for the next edition of my book, and actually writing about some of the signals and the ways that learning content can be tailored to people using machine learning. And so I thought that'd be kind of fun to talk a little bit through some of those things, because even though I'm neck deep in it, for a lot of the audience, that's still just this kind of passing interest in what that is and how it works. And I'd love for us to explore that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. For me too, it sounds still like a distant thing where you see movies, taking place in the year 3000 or something, and AI and machine learning. But it's pretty simple, and it's something we all use every day. But how OpenSesame uses machine learning is we use it for our content curation, and that's a big thing at OpenSesame. Part of localizing and personalizing the learning experience, we also want to personalize it for our customers, because just like every learner is unique, every company is unique. And so what we do is, and we serve, so many different organizations across the world with different needs. And so we've got a lot of data in our system about what works best for different types of organizations, and, across different industries and different subsets. But what we do is we do some tailoring in different ways. So we use machine learning with our content curation, where, particularly if it's an existing customer, you were able to, when we recommend, they reach out, we want to look at something different. We want to introduce a new topic or something. We'll refresh the content in our catalog. Well, we can take their previous learner, the content that their learners have consumed. We can look at, the ratings that their learners have applied to those courses within our catalog. We can look at how many people have completed those courses. We can look at within all of that personalized data to that organization. And then we, compare that. And by we, I mean, the bots in the computer, the tools that our very, very talented developer team have built. We also are able to leverage the information that we have based on, like what I mentioned, across different industries. So, and we can populate a list of suggestions that's, hey, for your organization, here's what people are doing in your industry. These are the courses that we'd recommend, or the different types of publishers. If you're in XYZ industry, and we know that companies in that industry, they don't have a lot of time. They want their learners to consume things very quickly. Well, we're going to suggest publishers with micro learning courses, or we're going to build all that out and really offer something that's super tailored and specific to the organization. So it's great, because one of our taglines at OpenSesame is, we curate so you don't have to, whether that's through expert personal curation. We've got a team of fantastic curation specialists, but always also through machine learning and AI, we're always learning so much about how people learn, and we're able to apply that and better serve our customers to get them things that are always going to help them continue to improve their training programs.
I love that, because again, I pick on the learning and talent people because I've been one, so I can kind of paint with a broad brush a little bit, but it's, hey, here's all the content, go find the thing that you want. And like, when most adults have not had that someone to transition them from, I'm going to tell you what to learn, to now you have this it's wide open. Go pick what you want. And
Mm-hmm.
so having something that says, hey, we know enough about you based on what the space you're in, the kind of job you have, like what those details are, right? We can give you a couple of different suggestions and help you jumpstart that, right? The flywheel kind of effect where we just get it spinning a little bit and it starts spinning under its own power. We can get you kind of connected into the value that this offers. And one of the challenges in the past, kind of the people that would push back against having access to a third-party library, like, well, it feels too big. Well, the problem was it is big.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but all of the data, all of the courses, all the content can, if you're using some sort of curation around it, it doesn't have to feel like I just stepped in here and there's 5,000 books on the shelf and I've got to pick the one to read, because that's overwhelming. But if I say, hey, I put these 5 on the table that I think are most helpful for you, and you pick the one that you want to start with, that feels much more doable, less stressful, I think, as a learner, and also helps you also to see, hey, you know what, this isn't just based on my guess at what's important, but it's based on some actual data points about other companies, other people in our space, other experts have said these things are relevant and helpful for you and will be in your current and future roles. Well, that's as close as you get to having a personal kind of advisor to helping you pick the kind of content you're going to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we offer the personal, concierge kind of curation service. But it's nice if you're on, you're, again, I relate to the L&D people in the room as well. There's people who are in the trenches and building out training. If you want to just see, let me just see what I can build myself, but then there's the aspect of, I was talking to a customer and they had, we're building our leadership development program and we had 42 different competencies that we wanted to train people on. And, all I had to do was send my Excel list of 42 different competencies to OpenSesame and say, can I get 3 to 5 courses, to choose from for each of these? And we were able to turn that back around in a week.
Oh, that's so easy.
That's
so easy.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I would have been the one over there not realizing that was an option and just over here like, okay, communication. Okay, there's one. Okay. Negotiation. Okay, there's one. And goodness, that's awesome to have that hands-on piece. I didn't even realize that was an option. That is incredible.
Absolutely.
So one of the other things I want to talk about, because I'm kind of trying to keep an eye on the clock. One of the other things I wanted to make sure we got to is, I know in the last year that, especially before that, it was already a focus, but in the last year, it's become like a top priority for the team at OpenSesame, is the conversation around DEI. And I will admit to you that I'm actually on the email list. I get on the list for a lot of different companies. I'm on the email list, and every time one pops in with one of the new sessions that's coming up, I'm always curious, like, who's going to be there, because you have an incredible set of speakers that come in and share these amazing insights about what's happening and how to keep people kind of on top of the space. So kudos to you on that, but also talk about why that is, because some people in learning might be like, oh, wait a minute, like that seems like a change, an abrupt turn to say DEI is now learning, but I don't think so. In the data that we've just gathered, say that should be a priority. So I'll stop talking for a second and let you respond.
Oh, no, but it's great. And that's the conversation. Diversity, equity, inclusion has always been a really important principle of OpenSesame, how we function as a company, as an employer, as, just a brand within the world, that it's been something that we've been leading on. We've had a number of initiatives locally within Portland, Oregon, to get more people of diverse backgrounds into technology and working with different, community organizations. So it's been something that's been, a core tenet of OpenSesame's philosophy for a while. But, of course, when everything kind of happened and the world started to take notice and really prioritize DEI, we knew we needed to step up and to really make a commitment to be a thought leader for our customers. We know people are looking for diversity, equity, inclusion training content, or just content in general on what they can do to make their workforces, going back to what I said, describing who OpenSesame is, we want to develop the world's most productive and admired workforces. And an admired workforce is one that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive as well, and that's where we want to be that resource for our customers. So we've made a really strong commitment to elevating diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI courses within our catalog. It's one of our top level categories now. When people search in the catalog, we have gone from a couple of hundred diversity, equity, inclusion dedicated courses to now over 1,000 within the catalog that are just specifically about that. We've made a really concentrated effort to provide, so many different options for people to train themselves, because it starts, the conversation, starts internally and, and with your leadership and with your organization, and to really, to be, to live up to their values too. So many organizations want their teams to be diverse, welcoming, inclusive, and we just want to be that resource. So we've done a lot of really great things. We brought in, a curation expert who specializes in diversity, equity, inclusion content. We've added a number of publishers that specialize in that, as well as really, just brought out a resource. So we've for 4 months, we had every other week a webinar about diversity, equity, and inclusion with lots of different speakers. We're delighted to be, we're hosting our annual Learning Unlocked virtual event coming up in June. We've got some really great speakers within the DEI space who are going to be joining us for that. As well as, we developed a quick assessment where we can, allow organizations to go in and kind of answer a few questions about their organizations, how comfortable they are with DEI, what they're doing within the space, within their organization. And they can take this assessment. It's like 10 questions, and it offers them an output of what level are you within our framework. And so it's a really great resource. I'll drop it in the comments as soon as this closes if anyone wants to take that assessment.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for the resource, by the way, because I'm always like, I'm a sucker for a good tool, a good framework, something that I can do that's actionable to help me there. So I'm a big fan of that. So thank you so much for offering to do that. Again, if you're watching this, check the show notes, check the comments below the LinkedIn video. It'll be there. Jessica's going to post it there as soon as the sessions are finished recording. So we're coming close to the end. I'm so glad we had a chance to get that piece of it out, because that's been a big focus, and it's been, again, fun for me. I'm so excited about Learning Unlocked. It's on my calendar. Take a minute, tell the audience how they can connect with OpenSesame, or if they're fans of Jessica after hearing from you, how to connect with you.
Absolutely. You can connect with OpenSesame. Of course, opensesame.com. You can connect with us there. We've got a really great website. We've got a lot of resources there. I always tout our resources and blog. You can subscribe to the email newsletter that Ben mentioned, that you can stay in touch with us. It's a really great way to get on our monthly newsletter list. You can connect with me. I'm sure Ben will link to my LinkedIn below. And of course, OpenSesame's LinkedIn is linked there as well. We'd love to have you join us for our Learning Unlocked series. It's going to be from June 1st through 24th, and we're going to be twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday morning. We're going to be joined by some change makers and thought leaders and a lot of different spaces that relate to L&D, and we'd love to have you there as well.
Awesome. Jessica, I appreciate you so much for hanging out with me, for sharing your passion for the space, right? It's so much fun, and it's so exciting for me. I learned some things today, and also I was already a big fan and a sucker for learning already, but I'm a bigger fan than I was before I started this conversation. Just thank you so much for hanging out with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. We're so looking forward to seeing your new research report coming out, and let us know when we can pre-order the second version of your book.
Ooh, absolutely. Goodness. I'll send you a signed one, Jessica, because that was awesome. Great plug on my behalf. Thank you again. I appreciate you. All right. To everybody else, thank you for hanging out with us. So much fun. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. One of the things I didn't touch on, because I want to make sure Jessica had a chance to talk about the DEI focus for OpenSesame, is we just finished this brand new study. I mentioned it earlier. The number one priority for large employers, for enterprise employers, was DEI from a learning perspective, not just from an HR perspective, where it has been on the top list for a long time, but from the learning perspective. Companies are trying to figure out how to solve for that, how to tackle that. And so the Learning Unlocked, some of the other things you talked about, are going to help to solve for that issue and to give you some tools and resources to make you more informed, if that's the area you want to go into. As she mentioned, you can click on in the LinkedIn show notes there. You can click on OpenSesame's name, go over to their company profile, follow that. You can connect to Jessica's name. I'll make sure to get that in there. And I appreciate all of you for hanging out with us today for the conversation. I'll catch you again next week with another interview with another company that's serving companies well, serving customers well in the HR, talent, technology space, doing innovative things. I appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of your week.